Ready for a crash course on Article 1 of the Constitution? Me too, but before we do, let's go ahead and quickly go over the structure of the Constitution, looking at how it's structured. Okay, so we're going to start off looking at a theoretical Article X, not the 10th article of the Constitution, but just any article, and how they're all structured the same. So we have Article X at the top. Now, every article is made up of sections. Section 1, Section 2, it can go on to 18 sections. Article 1 happens to have 10 sections. So we have the first article. Now each individual, we have the first section. So each individual section can be broken up into various clauses. Now each clause is essentially a paragraph in each section. So I have right here the first clause of Section 1 of Article X, and then the second clause is identified by an indent. So whenever there's an indent, whenever there's a new paragraph, that represents the next clause. Now we don't usually refer to clauses by first clause, second clause, third clause, but we usually refer to clauses as what is in the clause. What is the clause talking about? What is it dealing with? Perhaps a key word in the clause. Then we go into Section 2 and the pattern repeats. So that's how the Constitution is structured. Article to section to clauses. Next, we're going to actually go over Article 1 of the Constitution in detail. Now, Article 1 deals with the legislative branch of the national government. If you remember my first video, it exclusively deals with the national government. And it is made up of 10 sections. Each section can be made up of, with Section 1 having one clause, exactly one paragraph, and Section 8 having 18 clauses. So those clauses can vary. So it's by far the largest portion of the Constitution because it puts in place the largest portion of the national government. This largest portion of the national government, the legislative branch, has by far the most power but also the most restrictions of all the branches. So this first branch of government is the legislative branch, and Section 1 is the deals with powers vested. It's basically establishing this bicameral legislature. Section 2 and Section 3 deals with the House of Representatives and Senate respectively. Within each section there are various clauses that specify the qualifications for being a member of the House and Senate, the tenure of each member, etc., etc. Section 4 deals with the elections, saying there will be an election every 2 years for the House of Representatives, and every 2 years a third of the Senate will be re-elected. And then Section 5 deals with the powers and duties as well as the rules of procedure of Congress in both houses. With the House of Representatives being a little bit more strict when it comes to the rules of procedure. Section 6 deals with the privileges of the members of Congress. Section 7 deals with the legislative process, actually voting down on it, getting the president's approval. Section 8 is by far the most important section, so we're going to come back to this. Let's look at Section 9. Section 9 is the powers denied to Congress, and Section 10 is the powers denied to the states. Now, going back to our federal system, this is Article 1 of the Constitution that deals with the national government, but since we are a federal system, the Constitution is establishing a federal government, we come back to incorporate the states every so often. Now, Section 8, by far the most important section of Article 1. It includes the enumerated and implied powers of Congress. Section 8 has 18 clauses. The first 17 are each individual enumerated powers, the powers Congress explicitly has defined in the Constitution, such as the power to establish courts or the power to levy taxes. Each of those individual enumerated powers are an individual clause in Section 8. Now, those are the first 17 clauses. The 18th clause is what we call the necessary and proper clause, because it states that Congress shall have the power to pass any bill that is necessary and proper to basically implement its enumerated powers. So these are called Congress's implied powers, given to it by the necessary and proper clause. So the necessary and proper clause gives Congress the power to make any law to enforce its enumerated powers. So it has enumerated powers and implied powers. That necessary and proper clause is also called the elastic clause because Congress has the power to make pretty much any law it needs or wants to. And that 18th clause, necessary and proper clause, can be stretched. So that's why it's called the elastic clause, because it can be stretched to do whatever Congress wants.